Hello and a very warm welcome to another edition of Talking Germany, the show where we do just that. And my guest today is a man who's widely viewed as one of the most influential fashion designers here in Germany. Indeed, none other than Karl Lagerfeld has described him as a man who represents the zeitgeist. And here he is, that man in person, Michael Michalsky.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us here today on Talking Germany. It's a great pleasure. Now, Michael Michalsky won an international reputation for his work as a senior designer at both Levi's and Adidas. These days, he's based here in Berlin, where he's working hard to turn his own Michalsky label into a lifestyle empire. What's more, he's thoughtful and outspoken, so I think we can very much looking forward to hearing to what he has to say about the following topics. Style guru Michael Michalsky is Berlin's best-known fashion designer, and he's determined to push the German capital into the fashion big league. Tying the knot, gay couples here in Germany are allowed to take their vows and register their partnership. But it's not enough, says Michael Michalsky. And getting the job done, our studio guest says Germany's fashion designers would be at a very loose end without the specialist workshops that put their ideas into practice. Michael Michalsky, thank you very much once again for joining us today. I was very intrigued to read about your new fall-winter collection, which is called Urban Nomads. What on earth are urban nomads?
Well, urban nomads are people like me, people like you, and people like my friends, because our lives have drastically changed over the last 10 years. We all work in jobs that maybe didn't exist 10 years ago. We're always on the run. We are always connected. We are always connected to information. We're always longing for information. We are addicted to networks, social networks. And I just wanted to reflect on that because, particularly in a city like Berlin, you have a lot of urban nomads.
Mm-hmm. And let's talk about your style. You were talking here when we're talking about urban. I'm glad to hear that I'm an urban nomad, and we're going to talk about style. Tell me about your style. Describe it.
Well, my style is very Michalsky because, of course, I am Michalsky, and I think you can see it really clearly because I'm wearing a tailored suit but made out of a cotton fabric with an interesting silhouette and interesting details.
Rather short trousers.
Well, the 7/8 length is the new length for men.
Can you see me wearing short trousers like that?
Well, maybe not here in this show because you would expose too much the brand
of my hairy legs. I mean, too much of my hairy legs.
The brand that makes your socks. Why not? I think sometimes it takes a little while for a trend to make it into to a wider audience, and I think shorter trouser legs will really definitely make it.
OK, I'm looking forward to wearing shorter trouser legs. OK, we've had some first impressions there from Michael Michalsky. Here is a little bit more.
For many fashion insiders, Michalsky's Style Night is the highlight of Berlin Fashion Week. In July 2011, the designer presented his collection for the coming spring. Its theme was tolerance. His way to the top is a classic success story. Born in 1967, Michael Michalsky grew up in the small northern German town of Medewada, not far from Lübeck. His epiphany came when he was a teenager. An illustrated report about fashion designer Karl Lagerfeld fascinated Michalsky so much that he decided to become a couturier himself. He studied at the London College of Fashion, acquiring his first experience in the jeans business. In 1995, he started to work for German sportswear giant Adidas. Michalsky eventually restructured the venerable company and turned Adidas into a cult brand. For that achievement in 2005, he and his team received the Red Dot Design Award. He was the first fashion designer ever granted the prize. Like Lagerfeld, who inspired him, Michalsky thinks big and works in a variety of fields. Since 2005, he's dusted off the image of luxury handbag manufacturer MCM. And he has no trouble at all with unconventional collaborations. He even designs a fashion line for a major detergent manufacturer. With moves like that, Michalsky has earned both money and successfully marketed himself. In early 2011, the Catwalk Bar opened in Berlin, designed by Michael Michalsky and furnished to suit his own personal tastes. On its walls, fashion photos, which he collects avidly. The bar is a meeting place for industry insiders, and not just during Fashion Week. Michalsky has been working in Berlin for more than 5 years. In 2006, he founded his own label here. A design lab and boutique followed. His stated aim is to design real clothes for real people. And today he's our guest on Talking Germany, Michael Michalsky.
Michael Michalsky, whose two biggest idols are Madonna and Karl Lagerfeld, yeah?
That's correct.
Yeah. We heard about Karl Lagerfeld in the report. Let's just imagine that there's somebody out there in the world who's never heard of Karl Lagerfeld. Can you describe him for us?
Well, Karl Lagerfeld is probably the most important and the greatest designer of all times, because he's been successful for more than 50 years, which is unheard of in the world of fashion, because usually fashion designers are successful for a certain period of time because they're reflecting that particular zeitgeist or taste of that period very well. But he's been successful since, I think, 1956. And also what's so astonishing about him is he seems to get better with every collection, although he's getting older.
There's a certain mystery about him as a person. What's all that about?
Well, I think it's marketing, because today fashion has become a form of entertainment. A lot of people are interested in fashion. That's very different to how it was 10 years ago. I mean, today a lot of media are talking about fashion that normally wouldn't have talked about fashion. And, you know, when you want to become a fashion superstar, it's not just important that you're a great designer. It's also important that you market yourself, that you develop a personality and use that as a vehicle to talk about your clothes.
And let's talk about you for a second. Let's go back to that time when you were 12, 13, 14 years old and you were initially inspired by Karl Lagerfeld. Yes. Describe that moment, describe that phase in your life.
Oh, that was actually a very difficult time in my life, because I was, as you said, around 14 years old. I grew up in a little village and I absolutely hated living there, because I was very much influenced by what was hip at that moment in time, which were a lot of English electronic bands that also used fashion as a vehicle to talk about what kind of music they were transmitting, and I was dressing like these people.
OK, so but you were picking up on all these outside influences. Why were you doing that and the other kids in the village weren't? What made you so special?
Because I'm a very, very curious person. I've always been very curious, and some would even say nosy.
Where'd you get that from?
Probably my mother.
Aha. Tell me about your mother.
My mother is a very, very cool and very important person.
Mother's cool.
Life. Very cool. My mother dresses really cool. My mother was the first person that impressed me through her fashion sense, because she's got a very unusual fashion sense.
In a word, describe it.
Very eclectic and very individual.
Ah, yeah.
It's 2 words, sorry.
OK. We'll talk about that more in just a second. Now, one of the biggest hits at the recent Berlin Fashion Week was the Michalsky Style Night, which featured Michal's new designs for spring and summer 2012. The motto of the event was quite simply tolerance.
Elderly, young, African, European, Arab, androgynous or disabled. With his choice of models, Michalsky redefines limits, definitions of gender, physical perfection and the cult of youth. He sends 65-year-old Eveline Hall out onto the catwalk, as well as Andrej Pejic, who models both men's and women's clothes. Cultural diversity is alive and well. That was Michalsky's message in his show, a very different position from German Chancellor Angela Merkel, who in October 2010 said multiculturalism had failed. The collection is as diverse as the models. Oriental influences combined with Michalsky's distinctive casual look. That's how the designer sees tolerance, made in Berlin.
That's interesting. I mean, the word there, the key word is diversity, but I'm a little bit curious because diversity, many people, you know, around the world, people have opened up to diversity, people have accepted that, you know, the world is very diverse. Is this the fashion world catching up, or what's going on here?
Well, I think you're fooling yourself a little bit. I think a lot of stuff has improved and we are living in a much more diverse world than we used to many years ago. But I think there is still a lot of work to be done. And for that particular collection was influenced by the famous saying of our Chancellor, Angela Merkel, who said that a multicultural society was dead, that whole experiment.
She said, because we just got to, for the viewers, just put it down. She said it has failed, but she didn't just say it has failed. She said it has failed utterly.
Completely. So
were you angry about that?
Very, very angry, because I live in Berlin, and Berlin is a very good example of the fact that that is completely untrue. And also in my direct environment, a lot of my friends, a lot of the people I know, a lot of people I work with have all different backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, religious backgrounds, different sexual orientations, different ideas of how to live their life, and it all works perfectly.
I know about this. I live in Berlin too, but there are other parts of Berlin where there are all sorts of frictions, all sorts of tensions between various different groups and ethnicities and religions and so on.
Well, that's really normal, because people are still need to learn about each other. And of course, it's an ongoing process. But by simply saying it's completely failed utterly, I think you're not doing justice to the fact that if you go around Germany or if you go around Berlin, you will find that there is no such thing as a sort of like blueprint German anymore.
Yeah. I have to tell you that when I heard that comment from Angela Merkel, it was just at the end of last year, I was very angry too, I must say. As a,
Good. So it makes two of us.
It's interesting, and a lot of the foreign people, a lot of the Turks I know here in Berlin were very angry as well. They felt as though it was a bit of a sort of an insult in very many ways to what they've been going through in the last several years. Anger, are you the kind of person who gets angry?
Not really. I'm a very positive thinking person. I really love life. I love spending time with other people. I love learning about other people and other cultures. So I get angry very, very seldom.
Talking about your creations, and we've talked about your parents, I'm very intrigued. I read somewhere, and I was very touched to hear this, that you like to get feedback on your work from your parents. How does that work?
Well, this sounds a little bit like I'm a mother's boy, and that's actually not true, because I was brought up to be very independent and very individual. Of course, feedback is important to me from people, and my parents are some of the people. Also, I'm for me, the feedback is very important if it comes from people I've known a very long time and I'm very close to, because in the world of fashion, everybody has an opinion, but not everybody's opinion is really valid or valuable. So there are a few people in my world whose comments I really cherish, and my parents are some of these people, but also my business partner, one of my best friends, Volker, feedback is important to me, or of one of my best friends who I've known 25 years. These type of feedback for me is more important than some fashion blogger's feedback or some fashion journalist's feedback.
Okay. An intimate question, if I might. Yeah, before you leave the house in the morning, do you spray yourselves with all sorts of lovely aromas, perfumes and scents?
Yes, definitely. I love perfume. And I'm so happy that I now have 2 perfumes myself, and it's always been a dream of mine to have a perfume. But I love it, yeah.
For about a decade or so, gay couples living here in Germany have had the right to register their partnership, but same-sex unions don't have the same status as marriage among heterosexuals, and gay couples say they want more.
Siegbert Hahn and Peter Guckel in front of the register office at Cologne's town hall. Their first picture as officially recognised civil partners. That was 10 years ago. Memories of the ceremony are still fresh.
It was a wonderful feeling of happiness, absolutely.
Happiness that was a long time in coming. Peter Guckel and Siegbert Hahn have been a couple for 45 years. They met and fell in love in Cologne in 1966. Siegbert was studying art history and archaeology. Peter worked in a financial institution. Meeting kindred spirits and coming out of the closet wasn't easy. Back then, homosexuals were viewed as criminals. For years, the two kept their love a secret from their own families.
I never told my mother because I knew she came from another generation and it would cause her pain. Why should I ruin the last years of her life, I thought. Today I'd be more assertive.
Nowadays, there are about 23,000 registered same-sex civil partnerships in Germany. But they still don't have the same rights that heterosexual married couples have. For example, they don't receive the same tax benefits, even though they have the same obligations. They're also not allowed to adopt children, which Peter Guckel finds absurd.
Society needs these people in particular who are prepared to give love, to donate their love. That's the be-all and end-all of our existence.
With legal improvements still needed, the couple say that equality won't ever really exist until sexual orientation ceases to be an issue for the wider public.
Well, there you are, a very personal story, a story of two men, and really a little bit of German social history at the same time. When you watch that report, Michel, what do you think?
First of all, I think it's great that we talk about this. Secondly, I think, well, it's time that we move on to the next level, because I personally feel that we need more equality, and I personally think that there should be no difference between love in general. It doesn't matter who you love, but it should be all equal for everybody.
Can you just give me an example from your circle of friends, perhaps, about how that works out, the difference between the traditional heterosexual marriage, which people still call traditional, and a same-sex partnership?
Well, for me to give a report is very easy because, of course, I work in the world of fashion, and it's a very open-minded kind of setup where there are no rules and you can just follow your heart. I think it would be more interesting to know how it works for people that work in a more normal life, maybe the bank clerk or somebody who works in a grocery shop and is gay or lesbian. But having said so, I always thought that Germany was very modern and very liberal, and that's the kind of Germany I like to live in. But when I compare it to gay rights, it's not the case. For example, Spain, that's a more conservative Catholic country within the EU. There, gays and straight people are completely equal when they decide to marry. And I think that's something I want for this country too.
Could you imagine getting married?
Not at the moment, but that's got to do with the fact that there is nobody in the pipeline at the moment. But you should never say never. But I just want to have the choice to marry if I wish so. And I think there's a lot of other people who want the same choice too.
One very interesting thing here is that for an awful long time, most of the gay friends that I had, the one thing they didn't want was to be like heterosexuals. And this sounds as though these are gay men and women wanting to have the trappings of a heterosexual lifestyle.
I don't think that's totally right. I think it's a general thing. I think we still, when I say we, I'm talking for some gays and people that lead a homosexual lifestyle. I think we still feel discriminated. And whether we choose to then marry or not is a different story. But on paper, I do not wish to be discriminated because I give as much to society as a straight person, you know.
It's a human rights issue, almost absurdly.
I think so,
the bottom line is it's a human rights issue, Michel, you know that people outside Germany love those great big long German words, you know, collective nouns. These people in Germany are called Zwischenmeister. It's a lovely word, They're important, aren't they? They're very important for your industry.
They're very, very important because they are specialized kind of industry segments. Without them, as a startup, you wouldn't be able to really get your collection going.
And they're very much part of the Berlin tradition. Just tell me about the Berlin fashion industry. Berlin used to be a world capital for fashion in the 1920s. What's happened since then? Well,
what happened since then? You know, of course, just look at German history. The Nazis came to power and a lot of these businesses were owned by Jewish people and they got their businesses taken away, and then after World War II, Germany was separated, and basically Berlin was cut off from those Zwischenmeisters who tended to have their businesses just outside of Berlin.
Oh, yeah, so beyond the wall.
Yeah. Yes, so then what was left of German fashion industry moved to the west of West Germany, to the area of Düsseldorf.
Yeah.
And now we're trying to regain it back to Berlin.
But you have said Berlin, for example, will never be like Paris. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I couldn't quite decide. Yeah.
I think it's a very good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because first of all, it's very important that whatever you do, you gain your own profile. And in fashion, it's the same thing. And then I personally think Paris reflects on a quite antiquated picture of fashion. I think today fashion is not just haute couture dresses shown in Paris. I think fashion is also what sneakers you wear, what sportswear you wear, what jeans you wear in combination with what tailoring you wear. And I think there is no place on earth at the moment that reflects on that as much as Berlin. And that's why Berlin will be part of the Grand Slams of the most important fashion cities.
Oh, I love it. I like that phrase, the Grand Slams of fashion. Last question. Is fashion everything for you? You talk very passionately about fashion. Is it everything for you, or are there things that are more important?
Fashion is not everything for me. Fashion is my job, and fashion, of course, is my passion, because I wouldn't know what else to do, and I'm really, 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 really interested in fashion. But isn't fashion today everything we do and everything that surrounds us? Today, it's fashion where you go on holiday, it's fashion what kind of food you eat, it's fashion what kind of interior you have, what kind of car you drive, what kind of mobile phone you have. And I think I'm right, because if you look at how many people are interested in fashion these days compared to 10 or 20 years ago, it's become like entertainment, it's become part of pop culture.
Thank you for that summary of the significance of fashion. I think we'll move on from there to our traditional Talking Germany quiz at the end of the show. Quickish questions, quickish answers, please. We're going to talk about fashion, obviously. What do you prefer, style or substance?
Style.
What are you more attracted to, beauty or the beast?
Privately, the beast.
Fashion is political or apolitical?
Political.
Creativity or commerce, fashion?
Both.
Both. Is fashion fleeting or timeless?
Fleeting.
Oh. Thank you for that. Michael Michalsky has been a great guest, hasn't he? I don't think I've promised too much. He's been very fizzy, very frank, very eloquent. If you've enjoyed his company as much as I have, do come back next week. Until then, bye-bye and tschüss.